parak in Bava Metzia. You can find it in the handouts in the Bima on page 129. Hasocher as umanim, somebody who's hiring workers to do work for him. V'hitu zeh zeh, and they deceived one another. Ein lehem zeh el taromes. They don't have any claim on each other except for complaints. I mean, they can complain, they can moan and complain all they want, but they have no legal recourse. Now, what are we talking about here? Shehitu zeh zeh, they deceived one another. So there's two different opinions in the Gemara. One is that basically the owner hired an agent to get him workers, and he said, "I'm paying $20 an hour." The agent told the workers $15 an hour, and now they come to work and they find out, the owner was really willing to, the balabas, the hirer was really willing to give more money. It's too bad. I mean, they already contracted. He can pay them at the lower rate. They agreed to work at that rate, so then that's what it is. That, or could be hitu zed zeh, meaning that they pulled out of the deal. Meaning the guys say, I want to hire these guys, and then they show up, whatever, and he says, "No, sorry, not that they show up, but before they show up, even if they show up, I have to pay them for their time and effort for showing up." But before the deal, basically, he can pull out of it, or they can pull out of it. They can say, "Sorry, we don't want to do this work. We changed our mind." So they can complain. They have a complaint, but they don't have legal recourse. Okay, sachar sachamar, somebody who hired a donkey driver, v'asakadar, or like what's it's basically a cabbie. But lahavi piryafrin, it says to bring like the litter bearers. So it's talking about somebody who's bringing basically like the what's the word for it? There's a word for some kind of the thing that you would bring the bride in. They would put the bride on like this carrier.
Aperion.
Yeah.
Aperion is another word for it.
Right. I'm trying to think of an English word. What?
No, it's the two poles with the box in it.
It's like you'd carry a king or a queen around on like a litter or some kind of I guess something that you'd carry them around on. So basically, you have a need to be able to you have the wedding coming up. You gotta have this, right? That's what everybody has at their wedding, right? That's at the time that's what they did.
Instead of a limousine, that was a limousine.
Right. V'chalilim l'chal olames, or you hired people you hired the flute players either for the wedding or for the funeral, right? So you got to have the flute players. Upol and halos pishtano minamisha, or you hired workers to take your flax out of the wet, disgusting pot, whatever that the flax is sitting in while it's becoming proper. But if you leave it in there too long, then it starts to rot and spoil, and then you're going to lose everything you got. So you hired all these workers. V'chol davar sha'aved. Any matter where there's a loss involved, meaning in all these cases, you got to do the funeral, right? You got to do the wedding. You got to take that stuff, the flax out, or it's all going to be ruined. Or you need the donkey driver. You need him now to go to go where you need to go. V'chazru behen, and then they went back on the deal and said, "No, sorry, we're not showing up." Makom she'ein sham adam, in a place where there's nobody else to do it. Meaning, if it's okay, so you'll get this Uber driver or that Uber driver, big deal. But if it's in a place where that's all there is, this is your only option, so then socha alehem o matan. So you can either hire, you can basically force them to pay. You may have to pay way overboard in order to get people to show up at this late date or whatever. You can bring those guys to court and say, "You owe me this money. You were going to show up, and I had to pay more." Or you can fool them. You can deceive them. They say, "We agreed to do X amount of funds, and now they realize they got the upper hand over here." So they say, "No, really, we want to get $30 an hour or whatever." He can say, "Okay, fine," and then afterwards he says, "No." He can deceive them and say, "Yeah, I agreed to it because you were it was bribery or it was extortion the way you were behaving," and he can in court say, "No, I'm only paying the original amount that we agreed to."